Today, we're producing a hip-hop beat in Ableton from scratch, and the finished results sound like this. I'm Reid Stefan, Realest puppet in the game, and today we're creating a hip-hop beat from scratch. This tutorial is using Ableton 12 and 100% Waves plugins. I'm starting from a blank session and walking you through every step from bassline, keys, drums, synths, vocal samples, mixing, and mastering with Waves plugins. We're also going to be diving deeper into my favorite Waves plugins in the game, StudioVerse and StudioVerse instruments. These allow you to create complex sounds and full chains of Waves and non-Waves plugins all in one insert. So let's get started and create a blank Ableton session and open our first channel of Waves StudioVerse instruments. When you open the plugin, you're greeted with 8 macro knobs that you can assign to anything you like, a map of which keys you're playing on your keyboard, your pitch and modulation settings, simple octave transposing, everything that you'd need to play an instrument and control it with ease. I'd say the number one most unique part about StudioVerse would be the presets menu, and this is where you can get pre-made instruments using 100% Waves plugins created by some of your favorite artists, producers, sound designers, and more. I always like to start my beats with a bass line, so let's check out the synth bass category and see what kind of sounds they have to offer. I love how each preset not only has a single note, but a little melody or something to give you a better idea of what it's going to sound like. Okay, here we go. I like this trend machine. I feel like something goes like dun 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 dun. Hey. Well, you know what? The beginning of that was cool. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording, but no worry. Ableton's always got your back with MIDI. You just press this button and you can get back everything that you just did. I like this. Let's mess with the macro knobs here in StudioVerse. Hey. We're gonna definitely automate that. We just went through and completely customized our sound, and we don't even know what Waves plugins are even making it yet. And that's the beauty of StudioVerse right there, is it's all about creativity first, have fun playing first, and then if you want to see what's under the hood, you could do that later. So now that we've got a sound that we like going, let's see what we have. We have the Waves codec synth, Berserk distortion, EQ, ooh, and that's doing a lot. Keep that on. Our compressor. Abbey Road saturator. Man, this chain just keeps going. And kaleidoscope. This is our phaser and chorus and modulation plugin. Let's make another instance of StudioVerse instrument and see what we can do. Let's go back into synth bass. I want to come up with an 808 that kind of does like a call and response with this other bass that we have here. Something about filling in the bass first kind of helps determine what the keys are going to do later and what the drums are going to do later. Seems like a wise starting point for me. Ooh, let's try Sub Lambo. Download. Here's a great example of layering instruments. They've used Element to create the sub of this 808. Which is a Wave oscillator-based synthesizer plugin with a little Berserk distortion after it. But they've layered it with the Waves Create sampler, and this is applying the kick sound. See, if I turn this sub off, you could hear it quietly, this little kick click going in here, going in the background. I might even take a little bit more of that. That sounds nice. Nice. This sound is disrespectful. So we'll call this track bass and we'll call this track 808. Let's move on to a chord instrument. I'm gonna drop a StudioVerse on here, hit up synth keys. Oh, and also, let's also set our key here as well. So we are in B flat minor. That'll help us play our keys in key. try this preset. Ooh. This Rhodes preset is tight. But I feel like this could use a little bit more vibe, so let's customize this chain with some modulation. I'm going to pull up their new retro lo-fi plugin called Retrofi, and let's go ahead and just mess with these keys a little bit. Hey, I like this UFO pads. Hey. There we go. So I've got a bass line and some chords going. Let's fill in this beat with some percussion. For example, I could open up the Create sampler, drop in one of my favorite whole loop samples, customize it here in the sampler. And we can also sauce up our samples right here inside of StudioVerse. So maybe we'll do a reverb. Let's try Waves True Verb. Decay time can go up a little bit as well. So let's record some of those in. We can cut the loop off right there. Command J to consolidate, loop, and loop-de-doo. Command U. Maybe you want to layer two snaps on top of each other. We could turn this into instrument layers. And maybe we want to put another sample into here. CR8, boom. Maybe layer two whole loop snaps on top of each other. Like this little quick one. I like tuning it down like that. And we've got a super saucy StudioVerse snap. Let's do the same thing for a kick. And we're going to layer a sub kick with a top kick. Here in Whole Loops Raw Hits 3, we have different folders for organic kicks. And we'll do something soft like this, mixed with something hard. Hey. So that way, on one layer, we have a deep kick and a top kick, and we can mix them right here. Or even add an EQ to the top kick to further isolate it. We could do just like a basic Q1, just to low cut it. I feel like another stompy kind of kick could go well with this kick as well. Let's go to Sounds, Packs, let's just see what we have. Something like that could work. Let's drop that in. See what other good stompy sounds we have. You know, maybe we'll just sample this little bit right here, and we could very easily take the beginning of this loop here in CR8, like that. Now let's go find like a little hi-hat loop or something that will work for here. Ooh. I like this Whole Loops hat loop 160. This looks like it came from Raw Hits 3 as well. Hey! Let's customize this hi-hat loop a little bit just to make it match our beat a little bit better. Let's take this piece, shorten it, slice it, drag it over here. So now that we have some sounds in here, let's worry about an arrangement. I think I want to start with the chords and then have the drums and bass line come in right here. And then maybe after that, we'll have everything together. Let's layer some claps in here as well. I'm going to pull from, let's go to Urban Beats 3. Ooh, definitely one of those. Okay, now we're cooking. And we've got a clap. let's go back into StudioVerse and see if we can find more instruments now to spice up the melodies in this beat. I'm gonna go back to StudioVerse, Instruments, and let's see what we find here in Synth Keys. Let's go to Synth Pads. That's cool. Whoa, this sound is crazy. Then we'll jump back to here. Maybe some more so to that lo-fi plugin too. Retrofy. That's tight. I'm thinking like a low bass, sustained bass line to kind of carry this section out. Let's open up another Waves StudioVerse, Instruments, and let's go to Synth Bass. I heard some good presets in here when I was browsing in the beginning of the video. I like this one. Nice and disrespectful. Let's see if they have a thing here for filter. Maybe instead of stabbing notes, we'll do long legato notes. Let's just delete so that we just have the first of each pattern. And then we go down here to pitch and time, press the legato button. Let's add another instrument in here. Let's see what they have in the EDM sections. I want to kind of do a little EDM inspired bridge here. This could be cool. We just got to get it into the key of our song. Let's try it out. Hey. Woo. Next, I think this beat needs some crashes, so I'm just gonna give it a little bit more impact on the downbeats. I also want a little vibra slap effect. This whole loops one sounds perfect. After laying in a few more loops and percussions, all my drums together sound like this. Now that our rhythm section is filled out, let's dive back a little bit more into synths. And let's do synth keys. That's cool. Let's try this one. Right here, before it goes into the final drop of the beat, I want to add like a vinyl stop. So I'm going to add the Abbey Road vinyl plugin here on the master. Actually, before I should do that, I should probably save my work. I'm going to hit Command S and give this beat a name. And now we're going to freak this beat with some Abbey Road's vinyl. I'm going to drop it here on the master. And let's take noise all the way down, crackle all the way down. Now let's make this length a little bit faster, so it does 2-3 seconds slowdown when we automate this button. And this is going to get automated on right here. Hey! Woo! This beat's feeling pretty filled out, so let's record some vocal samples to process with Waves plugins. Kara's gonna lay down some melodies to mix into the background. Starting with lead vocals. Doubles to pan left and right. Then low and high octaves. So far, the only plugins on these vocals are Waves Tune Realtime and a little bit of stock reverb that we're going to swap out for some better effects using Waves plugins. I hear this being more of like a pitch down, deep vocal. There's a plugin called Vocal Bender by Waves that does exactly that really nicely. Let's search for Vocal Bender and I'll pull up the mono version because we're still dealing with a mono vocal at this point. Let's also bring the pitch down too, and the volume. Hey. That sounds tight. Maybe we can blend it together with the mix. That's sick. But I want to add a little bit more of like a wet vibe on here. So we're going to add a few plugins. I'm going to start out with Waves TrueVerb, and this is going to give us our reverb. I just love having all my volume sliders right here. Blend everything in. Let's bring up the reverb. And let's bring up the reverb decay time. Hey, now we're saucing. Do higher early reflections and lower reverb. Now this could use a little bit more sauce, so I'm just going to drop an H delay on here just to drive it home. And now the reverb made our signal stereo, so at this point we're using stereo plugins. So let's try the dotted eighth note. Might actually work pretty well. I just want to use the mix for this. We're trying to push it into the background. Instead of doing parallel to keep it up front, we want this to feel like a background element. Hey. Let's try ping pong. I like ping pong. And lo-fi. In all these vocals, same deal. Waves Tune Realtime, going into a reverb, because while I'm tracking, I like to have the fewest amount of plugins open as possible, but then once I mix, it's time to really put something intentional together. So let's keep Waves Tune Realtime here on each track. We're gonna do some group processing here on these stacks. I'm gonna highlight all these vocals, press Command G, and now we got a vocal stacks group. I think that's a little bit smarter than having 4 reverbs panned all kinds of different ways. I'd rather just have one on the group. So let's open up a regular Waves StudioVerse. Instead of the instrument one that we've been using, we're going to use the regular audio effects one. We'll pull up the stereo one because this is already a stereo group. And instead of browsing the preset menu, let's just create something custom. I pretty much already know what I want, and that's going to be some compression. Let's turn our groups down. And let's also hit this with an EQ. We could do something basic like the Renaissance EQ4. And we're going to keep this a shelf. Let's just pull down the brightness on this a little bit. I think it just feels too much like a lead vocal. Make as much space as possible in the mid-range in these vocals for yet another actual lead vocal on top, I'm going to pull up a new Waves plugin called Curves Equator, and I'm going to carve out some space in the mid-range because eventually a lead vocal or a hook or something's going to actually go over this. Let's press Learn. And also auto apply. Let's pull down the sensitivity to make this thing really work. And we could tilt this to make it brighter or darker. I like darker for this. Let's hear it in the mix. without it. And curves equator. Kind of just glues everything together and keeps it from becoming overly present and also overly harsh with all those layers of vocals going at the same time. So that's good for the dry effects in this chain. Now let's add a parallel split in here so that we can add some wet effects. I'm going to create one for reverb and one for delay. This first one's just going to be our dry signal. So we're going to put our first plugin over here, reverb. And let's switch up and do some reverb this time. And then we're also going to sauce this up with some delays too. H delay again. And instead of dotted eighth, let's do quarter. This is where things are going to get really saucy. I want these delays to be formant shifted. So I'm going to put another vocal bender before the delays so that the delays don't sound exactly like the dry vocals do. You hear they got that kind of deep vibe on the delays now. And we're also going to have these delays be a little less dry by adding some reverb on the delay channel. We'll try H verb after our H delay. And that's a pretty saucy vocal chain here for our group of vocals. Now to get extra freaky, I might put a pumper after this whole studio rack just so that all the delays and everything are ducking to the beat. Let's try pumper. Freak these vocals a little bit. So we've again just got some Waves tune on here. We're doing harder tuning settings on this one on purpose. Let's throw another vocal bender on this. I'm going to drop a mono one. Let's see what we could do with the formant knob. Maybe that pumper on here too. And I kind of like this one being extra dry and these being extra wet and delayed and reverbed. And of course you got the panning going here on the actual tracks for extra width. And then the outro vocals. So we've got some melodies, drums, vocal samples, special effects. I think we're ready to drop a little master chain on this beat. We've already been listening to everything through an L316, but we can dive in and take it a little bit further. One thing I like to add on my master chain, in addition to some tone shaping and dynamic control, is a little bit of harmonic saturation and stereo width. And for that, the Abbey Road TG mastering plugin is fantastic. Let's pull up the mastering stereo. We're going to drop it here after the vinyl stop effect, but before the final limiter. And in this, we don't really do that much other than just increase the stereo spreader a little bit. This plugin just adds a really nice analog character without even having to adjust much. Let's turn it on and off. And without it. turn the attenuation down on this just a little bit. I like to keep the attenuation below -6. And now just to make sure that we have our final loudness correct, let's just throw a Waves loudness meter here. And I'll throw the stereo version. Let's just see how loud we are. My target loudness is about -9, -8 LUFS for an instrumental. Let's see where we're at. Perfect. So now that we've laid down a bass line, keys, programmed some drums, added effects, ear candy, recorded and mixed our own vocal samples, and tied it all together with a master chain to reach industry standard loudness, let's rewind our track and take a listen to the finished beat made from scratch using Waves plugins here in Ableton. Disrespectful. So there you have it, how to make a hip hop beat in Ableton from scratch using 100% Waves plugins. If you want to get your hands on all the drum kits I used to produce this beat, or an entire vocal sample pack with over 200 royalty-free vocal samples recorded by Kara, I'll include links in the description below. Plus links to explore all the virtual instruments and plugins inside the Realest Waves plugin in the game, StudioVerse. Special thank you to Waves for sponsoring this video, and I'll catch you guys next time in another tutorial.